All right, what's good, everyone? Good to be back. Hope everyone's had a really good week. How are you boys doing?
Doing well, doing well. Coming off a pay-per-view, always enjoy, getting a chance to chop it up with like-minded individuals and talk about the sport.
Of course, of course. I'm anxious to hear what crossover has to say about his favorite fighter, Sean Strickland. Um, but but yeah, no, I mean it was. Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
I think actually, you know, it's actually a good place to start. So what we can do is we'll have a little chat about what went down last weekend. Certainly the fights that mattered. There weren't that many of them, but we'll start with the fights that happened last weekend and what's potentially next. And then we'll kind of press on from there. So to now that you've brought that up, we might as well get straight into that. First of all, Drickus and Sean, what did you think of the fight? And what do you think is next for both guys? Is I guess where we should kick this one off.
Go
Um,
ahead, Jax.
what I think about the fight. I mean, so obviously we have something to compare it to because we saw them do this very same man dance last year, and it was far more entertaining last year. And one fighter came to fight, and the other one didn't. I mean, even by his standards, Sean Strickland was very, very lackluster. And it, I mean, it really messed up the entirety of the fight. I mean, sure, he was tough, in resetting his nose and all that stuff. That's cool, but um, when it comes to offense and mounting any of that, like I just didn't. I don't think anybody saw any of it, and it was extremely disappointing. I mean, not that I was thinking that he was going to win. I picked him to lose, but I just thought that he would have more of a showing, and that was just crazy disappointing. And I really honestly don't know where he goes from here after that. I mean, is he getting disinterested in the sport? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. But yeah, it was disappointing.
I mean, I'm right there with you, dog. When I talked about in the lead up of that fight, I was saying towards the end of the first fight, I felt like Drickus was starting to pick up on some things on how to get the Strickland. And in this fight, for me, it literally looked as though he took those few things he was starting to have success with towards the end of the first fight and just carried it over into the second fight and just used that and built on it. And I think he caught on to the way you get the Strickland, man. You just got to extend your combinations. Like if you try and like hit him with one shot, like the shoulder rolling and like all the framing and stuff he does, like it's very hard to get to him. But then Drickers would give him 2, 3 punch combinations and maybe even finish with a kick. And he just was landing time and time again on Strickland. And I think it took Strickland's will because he's not used to getting hit that much. And when he was getting hit so much, and then he wasn't hitting Drickers as much as he was in the first fight, I think it just broke him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what anybody else was expecting because like the thing that stood out to me in this fight, whenever you get a Sean Strickland rematch, the issue is you know that Strickland's going to do the exact same fucking thing as he does every single time. Whereas with Drickus, there was always the potential of he can change up the game plan, and I think him talking about not wrestling, I think a lot of people were surprised by it because he did have some success and a lot of the moments where he punctuated the rounds he won in the first fight was where he took Sean down. But I think he was the one who had the potential for changing up the game plan a little bit more. We knew exactly what we were going to get from Strickland, and it became very, very clear in the first round that he was flustered and that he wasn't going to change the game plan whatsoever. So it was a very disappointing way to end the night. It was good if you're a Drickus fan, it was great to watch because it was a shutout performance. There was no
Mhm.
doubt in anyone's mind of who had won the fight. So from that point of view, we've got a definitive end to that. Anyone who was bitching about the first fight can now shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So there's that. But as a fight itself, it wasn't as entertaining as the stats probably show. You know, there were a lot of significant strikes landed. There were some moments where fighters were hurt a bit, but there was nothing conclusive. There were no R moments, and Strickland's going to walk away from that feeling particularly disgusted with himself because he did nothing. Um, and we should have. None of us should have been surprised by that. Having said that,
No,
though,
but I think the only thing is I expected a little bit more effort. I expected him to lose, and I expected to see the same punch, teep, rinse and repeat, like you say, crossover. But like
Mm-hmm.
I just expected more effort. Just try a little bit more, and like who said it in the Lord of the Pies said it in the chat. He did. He broke his spirit, and he just wasn't there at all.
yeah, I have to agree with that. So with that in mind, what do you think's next? What would you do next with both of them? I mean, it seems like an obvious. I can see Crossover's lips already. Are you serious? Like, it's fucking obvious. But
I
what would you
think
do next with the pair of them?
I think a matchup that makes sense would be Sean Strickland versus Robert Whitaker. Both come off losses. Um, like they probably don't want to fight like up and coming guys, and it'll probably give them something to get up for, to train for, that can motivate both of them.
That's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Strickland versus Whitaker makes sense. If that's what if Rob his mouth is all healed up and he's ready to go, I think that would be interesting. And it's two very very recognizable big names that can fit either headlining a fight night or in the main event of not main event but on the main card of a pay-per-view. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a big one.
Yeah, I think we're unanimous about that one. I think timeline wise it makes sense as well. Whitaker's still going to take a little bit of time to heal. Sean Strickland's obviously just broke his nose. I know there was a lot of talk about him potentially fighting Adesanya, but I get the feeling that Adesanya's going to want to get in there a lot more quickly than Strickland's going to be, in the time that Strickland's going to be coming back in. I reckon we don't see Strickland for at least 6 to 9 months at a minimum because his nose looks destroyed.
Yeah,
And he probably
real
got a
bad.
decent check. Yeah, he probably got a decent check from that fight as well. He can probably sit back a little bit and just reevaluate. Whereas Adesanya is going to be very bitter off the loss he's just had, and in his mind, he'll probably think, "Well, I just got caught," and he'll want to get in there as quickly as possible. So, I think the Whitaker fight makes sense. I think you do it 6 to 9 months from now, probably more closer to the 9-month range. And again, it's a fight that makes sense, and they're both nowhere near kind of title contention, and they won't be again. But it's a fun fight you can make that are both recognizable names that you can stick on a main card of any numbered card, and it sells. It will be fine. What about Dricus?
I mean,
We know
that's got to be
the fight to
Hamzat.
make.
That's got to be
We know the
Hamzat.
fight to make. We know what the fight is. He's fighting Hamzat. Like,
Yeah.
Hamzat finally got to get that title shot, man. It's been long enough. He did what he needed to do against Robert Whitaker. I mean, hey, what can you say? The man finished Whitaker in 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, it was quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got to be
And
Hamzat.
And DDP
Does it?
even said he wants to fight Hamzat.
I mean,
The only issue I have of it, right? I mean, let's be honest. That is the fight they're going to make. It is the one they're going to make. But is it the only option? I mean, the way that I look at it, it's like if all things were fair, who should it be? If all things were fair, who should it be?
well, Nasruddin Imavov is the number one contender now, as of the rankings. So if they're going by the rankings, it would be him. You got Kyle Barajo waiting in the wings as well, and he was the backup fighter, so they could go that direction if they wanted to. But obviously, we know where the money is, and Hamzat is where the money is, as far as like getting people to pay attention to it. And then obviously the wild card, go up and fight Alex Pereira. But in my estimation, I don't think that Dricus deserves to do it just yet. I think I would want to see another. I would want to see him beat Hamzat, beat another contender after that, and then go up. Because you're literally in the division of a former champion that they would not let go up, who has the most wins in a row in the history of the organization, and you can't be jumping up that fast to go for champ status. It don't sit well with me. But Hamzat's the next fight. That's it.
Yeah, I still have to balk at that. Like, I think the way that I look at it, right? Imavov in the last year has beaten Delidze, Cannonier, Allen, and Adesanya in the last year. And in the last in double that time frame, so well, actually 2.5 years, Hamzat has beaten, who was it? It was Usman and Whitaker.
Whitaker.
And Whitaker's lost a few matchups as well recently. I mean, I think the Adesanya win, but just by itself, is more impressive. I don't like that he automatically gets the shot. And when you pile on the fact that he's pulled out multiple times, he's ruined a couple of cards, there's still the thing in the air of can he get into America? I don't like that he. And by the way, the real reason I don't want him to get it, we know.
Yeah.
I've been talking mad shit about this guy for about 4 years. Saying he's never going to be a champion.
Yeah.
And if he gets the fight, he might win.
Yeah.
I have an
I
issue
am
with that.
certain there. I don't know how deep it is in the archives, but there's a video where I'm sure that we've talked about
Oh,
this.
there's several. There's more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
And
like,
then on top of it, we got to remember, last year when Dana said the winner of the Hamzat Usman fight was going to get the title fight, and then obviously that didn't happen. So then Hamzat beats Whitaker. I mean, if Hamzat doesn't get it, who would Hamzat even fight? Who would you do?
no, my view is more that like he should be like he's going to get the title shot next, or a title shot next in his fight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he should be next for Dricus, if that makes sense, because it all depends on what's going to happen, how long that fight's going to take to materialize. The timing of it's going to be a thing. Also, as well, I quite like
the where is going to be a big part of it.
Also, as well, I'm kind of part of me is kind of intrigued by the prospect of, Yuri made his remarks towards Dricus as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that could happen now, but I'm looking further down the line where I'm like, if Dricus decides to go up to light heavyweight, and what you were saying about him not being ready to have a title shot immediately against Alex, Yuri's in a very similar position where you're like, what do you do with him? He's beaten everybody else at light heavyweight. Surely he would be a really good litmus test for Dricus at some point. If Dricus is going to go up, and imagine the fight that would be.
That is literally that is like two special education people fighting outside in the courtyard. Like,
yes,
you want to see that. You got
fight of the year potential right there. Fight of the year potential right there. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So that's more like where I'm at, because I'm still going to go on record here and say we know what's going to happen. DDP is going to fight Hamzat, and I'm going to go on record again to say I think he beats him.
You have to. You've already made that bid. You have to.
I've got no choice. But I'm going to be right. I do have no choice, and that is part of it. But I do actually believe it. I'm not just saying it. I think. I'm so blinded at this point. I'm not sure. But I think I believe it. I think I do. But I guess we'll find out soon. We know that that's going to be next, and I think either way, what feels so great about middleweight at the moment is it feels like, or Dricus in particular, is it feels like there's so many options in front of him.
Mm-hmm. And then something else about middleweight, like we just getting all this new blood in middleweight, all this new blood. Calbarrio, Imavov, Hamzat, and then you still got guys like Fluffy Hernandez working their way up. Like, it's so much new blood at middleweight.
It's a division that really needed it, because it used to be such an exciting division to watch when you had, when in and around the time that Bisping was champion, and you had just like a murderer's row of, like, you had Jacare, you had Yo Romero, you had just a stacked full of just horrible contenders to go through. And Whitaker was going through the division at the time. There were like 8 or 9 guys that was so good, and it feels like the division's fallen off again, but now it feels like finally it's back, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So to take like a little bit of a total detour, we have to talk about Zhang Weili and her fight against Tatiana Suarez. Surprised quite a few people, not really myself. I did pick Tatiana, but I wasn't surprised by the outcome. So same question, I guess. What did you think of her performance, and what would you do with Zhang Weili next?
I thought it was an amazing performance. I thought she definitely showed just how good she is everywhere. I mean, going into the fight, all the talk was Tatiana is the best grappler in women's MMA. Well, she got out grappled by Wei Li, got outstruck by Wei Li. And I mean, what can you not say about Wei Li? I think now the thing to do is we got to have that super fight over for the women. We got to do Wei Li versus Valentina Shevchenko. And just the legacy on the line just makes it a must watch. I mean, I know there is a number one contender at flyweight in Mano, but I personally would love a Valentina and Wei Li fight. Would love it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she's beat up and comers, and she just deserves it at this point. And that's my whole thing about people going up and fighting for another belt. You have to deserve it, and she clearly deserves it. I definitely thought that she would have trouble with the size and strength of Tatiana Suarez, but it was nothing. It was nothing. I mean, once she took away her confidence, which probably happened in the first round, it was all downhill from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not a fight at all. And that really, really impressed me. So yeah, like at this point, if she were to fight Valentina Shevchenko, I'm probably picking Zhang Wei Li.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I don't have a fear of that size for her anymore. So yeah, she deserves to go up there 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you guys as well. I think I had her winning the fight 5 rounds to zip, pretty much. Like, because I think even in the first round, Tatiana didn't do any damage when she had control over her, and you saw that. I mean, I personally felt that once Wei Li survived the submission attempts in the first round, it felt like the writing was on the wall immediately. Like, I knew she was going to be fine from there on out, given what she is. It just as a quick side question before I get into what should be next for her. And I kind of want to tie in a little bit. Well, we can tie in Mr. 509's question into this as well. If Wei Li had not lost that second fight to Rose, which in my view was, I've seen the fight a few times, it felt like a robbery to me. It felt like a pretty clear 3-2 Wei Li win. If she wins that fight, are we talking about her being the greatest women's female fighter of all time?
I don't
No.
know. I don't know if she would definitively be that person, but she would definitely be in that conversation with Nunes. 100%. 100%. I would say right now, I would say it's Amanda, and then just below her is Valentina and Wei Li. Like, I think they're at level, and then that's why you make that super fight, and then the winner of that will have at least a conversation with Nunes if it's Wei Li. If it's Valentina, I don't know if you really can do it just because Amanda's beaten her twice, even though the second one might have been a robbery. But if Wei Li goes up and does it, I think we definitely can have that conversation with Nunes. And who knows, that might even want Amanda to come back to fight Kayla Harrison down the line. I'm just saying.
I mean, I feel like Amanda is kind of outpaced everyone, at least thus far. Because I actually do put a lot into the fact that she KO'd Chris Cyborg the way that she did. And I give and I like
Which has
Chris
aged
Cyborg.
even better.
It really has.
Better.
It really has. So
Yeah.
that's why I have, even though she has a terrible loss,
Mm-hmm.
but all of them have some questionable losses. Valentina lost to Alexa Grasso. Zhang Wei Li lost to Rose Namajunas twice.
Mm-hmm.
You can question this. The other one, I don't know. So they got some losses on the record, but for me to put Zhang Wei Li up in that category, she definitely does need to go and get that other belt. And like you said, getting it off of Valentina Shevchenko, yeah, that's a big stepping stone into that number 2 spot. A big one.
Yeah. So just to again to stay within the same kind of area, how do you guys feel that I want to kind of address what Mr. 509 has said. Do you agree that USA wrestling has fallen off a bit? Like, have we reached that point where, because we obviously hear DC fucking get on his knees and gargle fucking gargle the balls of American wrestling every fucking week to levels of extreme nauseum. Do you feel like that he sounds more and more like a complete and utter gimp right now? the more and more he goes on about it. Do you think that, I don't know why I've chosen this exact word, I'm really pissed off listening to it every week. Is there some truth to that? Is what I'm saying. Has American wrestling kind of fallen off in terms of in regards to the whole landscape of MMA?
Mm, I don't know if it's fallen off. I feel like that people, just like any other discipline, people have figured out ways to deal with it. I think that we're starting to see people level up to Dagestani wrestling a little bit. I mean, I still think it's more dominant, but people have started to kind of figure out ways to deal with it. And American wrestling has been a staple within the UFC for quite a while. And it's just the fact that people have started to learn how to deal with it and neutralize it. So it's just kind of the way that this sport goes. It's cyclical, and people start to figure things out.
So
Mm.
to add on that, I think it's a couple different things. So with the American wrestling, I wouldn't say that it's not as effective, but the issue is nowadays American freestyle wrestling is just about getting takedowns. It's not
Mm.
about controlling guys, keeping them down. So what you see is in modern MMA, all these guys are learning all the fundamentals and the techniques on how to get back up, what they need to do to get back to their feet, how to use the fence to get back to the feet. And a lot of the American wrestlers, they have trouble. Like they can get guys down, but guys just get right back to their feet. And then just like Jack was saying, you go look at the Dagestani wrestling, it's still the best, but even them, like they're not super far ahead of people anymore. Like they take guys down and guys even get back up against them. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that as the game evolves and we get better and better at it and we learn more and more techniques, guys are going to learn how to defend a lot of these different things. And that's just the evolution of the game.
Yeah, I think obviously what you're saying is true. I think generally what's happening now is the base of MMA is getting a lot more skilled, where everyone's a lot more well-rounded. I think I kind of framed it in a poor way where what you've got with, and I like the fact that somebody brought in the example of Bo Nickel and Tatiana Suarez to an extent as well. Because what you're getting is, a few years ago where you get people that could essentially come in and wrestle and dominate, and they didn't necessarily have to have an incredible striking game to be
Mhm.
able to get away with things. But you still have people that, even though the game has generally risen, I would put Tatiana Suarez and Bo Nickel in that very similar bracket where they're very, very wrestling heavy, and the rest of their game isn't really that amazing. And I think that it's starting to get exposed with some of the older school Dagestani wrestlers as well, because the ones that are really good, like Usman and Umar, who have recently had shaky times right now, even they're struggling a little bit with being able to be neutralized with that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's like I just feel like anyone who goes in there with a heavy wrestling approach now can be neutralized and be picked apart. And that's kind of the direction that we're heading in. I feel like striking's starting to get back on top now because, you know, most strikers in the game now at least have enough of a basic wrestling defense element and are good enough on the ground where they're starting to forge ahead a little bit. So if your primary skill is striking, you've got more of an advantage there. But it's just something I was. All right. So the only other fight on the card that was kind of I felt like that was relevant to talk about was Tapiria's performance lower down on the card. Just want to quickly get your thoughts on what you felt about his showing, and again what you might do with him going forward.
Mm. I would say, I mean, his showing was tentative. I thought that he was very hesitant with some of the things that I think that he's capable of, but that's just the nature of somebody fighting in their first UFC fight. I mean, I know that his brother, has been there. He's seen things, and Alexandre has been right there with him, but it's different when you're in there. And he was fighting somebody who, though they came in on short notice, they trained with a champion. And so he couldn't just go out there and go crazy. And he's a smart dude. He's a coach too. So I think he just took the easiest path to victory and did what he needed to do to get out of there. But I think that the more that we see him, the more that we're going to start to see that explosive, that explosive punching power, all the things that we see in Ilya, we're going to start to see in him too. So I think as long as they take their time and moving him up, like I think that his next fight should definitely not be anybody in the top 15 or anything crazy like that. Fight somebody of the same skill level. We'll start to see how good that dude really is.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, he looked like a mirror image of Ilya, just minus the explosive punching power. And just like Jax was saying, I think he just was playing it safe. He knew what he had to do to get the job done and just stuck with that. I mean, at bantamweight, it's so many killers everywhere in the division, so you can't give him too much too soon because you don't want to miss out on potentially like stunning his growth in the sport. But I think the next thing is just finding out what type of power he has in his hands. If it plays like Ilya, if he throws those combinations in tight like his brother. But outside of that, I mean, the head movement, the pre-slips, the timing, like it literally looked like a smaller version of Ilya to me.
Yeah, like I'm kind of along similar lines. I wasn't blown away with his performance in terms of he looked like somebody who hadn't been in there for a long time, which is exactly what the situation was. He
Yeah.
hasn't been in there for a long time. What I really dug about his performance generally, I really loved his patience. There was no elements of he looked like he was very comfortable in the game plan he'd adopted. He knew what he was doing. And I like that when he did get that knockdown, he didn't go rushing because it's very much the Tapuria way. There's no sense of like getting overexcited and diving in and getting clipped. It's just something about those guys where it seems that keeping yourself composed is a key to a lot of what the success they have is. I will say though, there were a few things about his performance that bothered me. Like there were a few opportunities where he had opportunities to get full control, and he wasn't taking advantage of those opportunities. And I think against better competition, he might struggle. Some of his transitioning was really good, but when he had opportunities to kind of like get in body locks or get his legs wrapped around, and he just wasn't taking them. I was looking at his performance and wondering why he wasn't doing that. And I
Yeah,
just think against better competition at bantamweight, that he's gonna run into a wall.
it could be,
But it could
and
have been
it
part of
could
the
be
game
a
plan.
fact that he, again, the octagon jitters of being there the first time, he wasn't thinking as clear as he will think once he's in there again. So I mean, it remains to be seen. But I saw those things as well. I did see a little bit of the power, whereas it didn't land the way that the stunning power that we see from Ilya. But I saw the same movement, the same way that he throws punches. You could see that it was there.
Yeah.
So I think that his next fight will be a lot more explosive. I think.
Yeah. It's kind of easy to see how, like, I don't know, it's Ilya Tapira had a very, very similar performance in his first fight as well. It was kind of a lackluster, unanimous decision, and nobody was blowing up in arms about him at the first. But you could
Yeah.
see there was something there. And I think we've got the same thing. The only issue is he's a bit older. He's 29 years old. He hasn't had a lot of fights in the game. So there is an element of slow roll him a little bit, but not too much. I'd personally give him I don't hate the Peyton Talbot shot just outside the rankings.
I
I think
don't
that would
want to
be
see
all
that.
right.
I don't.
That's
I
too
want to
soon.
see it. I want to see it.
You
Yeah, I don't
think
want to
it's
see
too
it now.
soon?
I want to see it, but I don't want to see it now. I
Yeah,
think that
same.
it's the same thing, and I brought it up on the podcast that me and Ola did just the other day. I feel like it's the same thing as the Bo Nickel Joe Pyfer thing, and I know how you love Joe Pyfer, but like they were both elevating at the same time, and if you would have matched them up at the same time, you kind of lose a little bit of steam off of something that could factor in later on. So I don't want to match them up too fast. It could be something that's really explosive.
Yeah, I
Well,
want to
the
get
name
Peyton
I
Talbot, give him like a little tune-up fight, get him moving back in the right direction,
Yeah.
and then build him back up, build Alexandre Taporia up as well, and then we can get a matchup.
Well, the name I had down was actually somebody like Davy Grant. I think it'd be like a really good test for him.
That'd be
Just,
fun.
because he's just
Man.
outside the rankings.
He gonna make you work.
I
He gonna
kinda
make
like
you
it.
work.
Yeah, and he's always a tough out. So I was thinking
Yep.
someone along those lines, because you can't slow him too much. He is 29, but also you don't wanna get him, because looking at the rankings, I mean, the easiest fight he potentially could have within the rankings now would be Marcus McGee, and that's not an easy fight for anyone. He's a
No.
tough dog to be putting him in the
There
ring now.
there are no easy fights in the rankings at bantamweight. Everybody can hurt you.
Yeah. But there's definitely something there, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes. All right, so we'll look ahead to next weekend then. I'm not sure which fights you guys want to cover. There's a few. I've got 3 down here that I kind of want to talk about, or 4 potentially. I guess the first one we could start with is Bonfim versus Sadikov. How do you see that one going?
Ooh. I'll let you go, Cross. I know you did a video. Have you done the video on it already?
Yeah,
I haven't seen
I did
it
a
yet.
video on it.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I did a video. So I think this is going to be very competitive. Sadikov, for me, he fights to whatever the level of his opponent is. Like if he's fighting somebody that maybe skill-wise isn't quite there with him, I feel like he fights at that level. If he fights somebody else that's really good, he fights at that level. So Bonfim, I feel like that the BSD fight where he came out and was kind of like, oh, whatever, and BSD was just blasting those kicks on him and got him out of there kind of early. I think that he's gonna learn a lot from that and realize that, like, hey, I gotta take this serious. I gotta have my game plan and how I want to go about it. So I think that fight's gonna be amazing. But I ended up going with Bonfim in that.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that I'm leaning. I mean, when I first saw Bonfim, I was like, oh, like, are we seeing a future like title challenger type of fighter? Like he looks so impressive. And then when you see him against yeah, and I don't know if it was a octagon intelligence situation or if he just got hurt against BSD, and I don't know what it was, but that definitely made his stock go straight down for me. But when I saw this matchup, I kind of thought the same way as you, that this may be a really good opportunity for him to get right back on the horse. And I think there's no way that this fight is terrible. I do lean towards Bonfim as well.
Yeah, I'm going the same way as well. I think Bonfim's obviously had a few performances that were a bit. I think he's the more talented of the 2 brothers, in my opinion. And I know he lost to Benoit Saint Denis,
BSD.
which is not the greatest loss. But looking at that fight, I think he got a little bit too cocky in that one, and he kind of allowed BSD to just kind of kick away. Feel like I think he had that feeling of invincibility, and he took one too many kicks to the gut and got gassed out. And I think if he'd gone in there without his head up his ass, he probably would have done a lot better. And I think he needed that humbling. And I think while I think Stadikov's really good and it's going to be a good fight, the Sadikov draw with Borshev looks less good now.
Yep.
And I think Bonfim is potentially, I don't know, just so well-rounded, so explosive. So I'm going to take him to win this. But again, it's a really, really great fight. The one I really want to discuss with you guys, this is kind of potentially what could be the fight of the night for me, is Calvin Kattar against Yusuf Salau. How do you guys see that one going?
Go ahead, Jax.
Bruh, have y'all seen the line for this? Have y'all seen who the favorite is?
Bruh,
I'm
Zalal is a huge favorite. He's a minus
Salau.
410.
Massive favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, 410.
Yeah,
Yes.
minus 410.
I was surprised when I thought about how Calvin Kattar looked the last time we saw him. And I know he was injured, right? He was, coming off that knee injury, right? And that factored into him getting manhandled by somebody coming up from a lower division. But I don't know, man. Maybe it is time. Like maybe this is when we start to see Calvin Kattar fell off. I don't know. The line is really what threw me off in seeing it, because like leading into it without seeing the line, I was leaning towards Calvin Kattar. I thought that his just his experience would be able to get him to get through it. But I don't know, man. I'm torn now. I don't even really have a
With
pick
those
yet.
odds.
Those odds are crazy.
Mhm.
Those odds are crazy. It makes me think like I got to go back and think. Is there something that I'm not looking at for these odds to be this crazy?
Yeah, maybe there's something we don't know about the because surely I wouldn't think it was like a betting lines that where obviously betting gets swayed by how much they expect people to bet on one side than the other. It feels like there must be something more to that.
Feels like it.
Him
It
coming
feels
off an
like it.
injury or whatever. I did not know it was minus 410. That is
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
Because I feel like I've got to give one of those weird ones where I'm like, I think Yusuf Salah's gonna win, but you kind of have to bet on Calvin Cater.
Dude, you got to take a flyer on him. You got to. Just a one little,
Yeah,
just throw, like I say, the couch cushion money. Throw that on there just in case. You never know.
just think you don't get odds like that often.
I think
And I
I
mean,
can. Oh, go ahead, Frankie.
no, go ahead, shoot.
Oh, I was gonna try to give my best to try and like explain the odds. For one, Calvin Cater's 36 at featherweight.
Mhm.
And then on top of it, the recipe to beat him, the book is out there on him. If you use your grappling, you will beat Calvin Cater. You can hold him down. He's not going to be able to get back to his feet, and he's not going to have any offense at all off his back. Yusuf Zalal has been using a lot of his grappling in his last few fights and got quite a few submissions on his record. And I think that path of victory is very clear for him. And the way he's been fighting, I just see him being on the feet a little bit because as we know, Cater got some very good boxing, very good straight punches. And I think Zalal is going to play around with him enough on the feet to let him get comfortable and then get him on the ground. And then once Zalal gets him on the ground, I think Cater's done at that point.
It could be one of those ones where the fight is horrible from that perspective because I mean, Qatar on the feet is very handy. You don't really want to spend too much time on it. If he gets his boxing going, he's as good as anyone with his
Mhm.
hands. I'm not saying Zalal's any slouch, but the thing with Cater as well that's very frustrating about him is he's very poor on the bottom, as in he doesn't get up. But I think part of that is because he doesn't want to take any risks. He kind of makes sure that he doesn't take a lot of damage and that he's not leaving himself open for a submission. And that can be very, very horrific to watch. Because you can
Yeah.
essentially just take him down and then he's not going to make any attempts to get back up. He's just going to make sure that he's safe. And for somebody who's very, very easy to take down, and Zalal has that in his game, looks hungrier than ever. I think that time leaving the UFC for a little while, and going back to the regionals and having a little bit of fun there has really done him the world of good. And he's come back and look amazing. So I understand him being the heavy favorite, but yeah, it's a
It's a lot. It's a lot.
it's a lot.
Some
And
big
then
odds.
the level of competition that Calvin Cater has fought at, I mean, yeah, he's lost 4 of his last 5, but the losses, the people that he lost to, Aljo, Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett, which arguably he won that fight,
Oh, he won the Josh
right?
Emmett fight.
Yeah, he won the Josh
Yeah.
Emmett fight.
I
That
was
was
pretty
4.
sure.
That was like Kai Kara France and Mir Albazi level of robbery, in my opinion. Maybe
I
not
mean,
that bad, but
y'all know how I feel
it was
about Josh. That's
4-1.
my boy, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And then the other loss was Max Holloway. Like, come on, like it's okay to lose to those guys, but the
I
way
can
that
raise you
was
though. I can
terrible.
raise you. Yusuf Zalal's lost Ilya Taporia, Sean Woodson,
Mhm.
and I think the other one's like Sun Woo Choi. So I mean, he's been in there
And he
Yeah,
was
with some good
crazy
guys
young as
yeah,
too.
well when he fought those guys as well.
You
He was
know.
so young
Mm-hmm.
when he
yeah.
fought those guys.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I
I'm
can
going
see I
Zalal,
can see
man.
why
I'm
he's the
going
favorite.
Zalal. Forget it.
I'm going Zalal as well. Yeah, I'm going Zalal as well.
I can't take a chance, Calvin. I'm sorry.
And I take back it being potentially fight of the night as well because it's not going to be, is it? It's going to be a date.
It
Is what
is.
it's going to be.
You're gonna be spooning.
Yeah, good for perfect for Valentine's Day. Really, maybe that's why they chucked it on there. It's like watch it with the missus, get some gay corn going. I don't know, whatever. That's what you're into. All right, so the final fight on the main card or the headliner of the card is going to be Cannonier versus Rodriguez. Ooh. I have a few thoughts, but I'm gonna let you guys go first. What do you reckon about this?
I mean,
That's
go ahead, Jax. Go ahead, Jax.
well, Jared is one of those people that I tend to have OG bias on, and man, the way that I saw that things went for him in the last fight, like I don't think I can go that way this time. And the reason is not necessarily from the punishment that he took; it's more from the output. Like I feel like he's not throwing punches and just any strike the way that he used to, with the intent to harm. I feel like he's being strategic, and he's being so strategic that he's not throwing anything. Um, it's not to level of this, but it does remind me of the way that Tyron Woodley started to decline. So, and Gregory Rodriguez, he
Can
don't play.
bang.
He don't play the games. That dude he's wild. And so I think that Rodriguez wins, and it's probably going to be a finish, man.
So I think this matchup is a good one for Cannonier, just because Rodriguez is very defensively irresponsible. The guy does not move his head at all. It is right there.
He can't move his head.
Yeah, at all. And if you hit him, you can put him to sleep. I think he got knocked out brutally by Bruno Ferreira a few fights ago. So I mean, I like it from that standpoint from Cannonier, to where there is an opportunity for him to get this done. But on the flip side, Gregory Rodriguez is going to come after you. You know what I mean? With big power. And just going off what Jack said, how Cannonier looked in that last fight against Imavov, that just didn't look good at all. Like, he basically was running away from Imavov. And then on top of it, you know, Cannonier is 40 years old, and Father Time's undefeated, and we all start to slow down. And you know, this is a brutal sport, and if you slip a little bit, the drop off can be massive. So yeah, I think if Jared tries to turn back the time a little bit and wants to like get after it, stand in the pocket, he got a very good dance partner to do it with.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great fight, and I think it's the right time for the fight as well. Because I mean, like you said, Gregory's had a few damaging losses. But it's like we've kind of alluded to. I think the Cannonier output is what's worrying me the most. Like in his last two, he's been very bad. But I will say, the losses he's had have kind of aged better in some ways. I mean, we all saw how good Imavov looked against Adesanya. He looked, and I mean, he's in the best shape of his life. He's looked more and more amazing the more he's been in there. So is it that Cannonier's completely fallen off a cliff, or is just what he was getting back from Imavov was that good, where it was like, you know, maybe it showed him up more than we thought it did at the time. And as you said, Rodriguez can be hit, and can be laid out. And I don't know if and another thing that kind of worries me as well is this is going to be Rodriguez's first 5-rounder, right? I mean, Cannonier's been finished kind of, but I mean, the fight with Imavov, it wasn't like he was cleaned out completely. He hasn't been laid out, which is where I probably see the best potential for Rodriguez winning this fight. So if they're scrapping away for the first couple of rounds and Rodriguez starts to lose that pop a bit, I'd favor Cannonier in that situation. Even if his output's gone down, I think if his chin is still somewhat there and he doesn't get ground out and just like ironed out in the first round or two, I could see him taking him into deep waters and then just beating him down. I could see that coming. So it's another one that's like, what are the odds on this one anyway?
Let me see.
I assume they're fairly even, right?
RoboCop is -225. Cannonier's plus 185.
Whoa. Again. Yeah. I see it. I was thinking that would be more of a pick'em. So I don't know. That might be another one last roll of the dice with Cannonier. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced. I like RoboCop a lot. I'm not entirely convinced.
I feel like the reason I lean towards RoboCop is because of something that you said a moment ago. Is the timing. I think that if RoboCop's fighting Cannonier 2 years ago, I'm picking Cannonier. I'm batting an eye, but it's just the time. It's just the time. He's had some injuries as well. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't look like this is the type of fight that he's supposed to be winning. Um, he should win based on his skills, but
Yeah, and I'm kind of with what No Chill's saying as well. Just to piggyback off that, I know that Canada is not known for his stamina, but he's been in 5-round fights. Like his last few of, and I don't know. There's the experience of that counts. I think we've seen Rodriguez gas over 3 rounds. Will certainly slow down. But he has looked better in his last couple, where he's managed to go a little bit further. So it's a good fight. I mean, I'm gonna side with. I do believe that. I do believe that RoboCop gets it done probably in a second or third. That's probably where I'm leaning. But if it gets beyond that, Cannonier might be a good one to throw some live money on if it gets to that stage. But it's a good fight. I'm fairly happy with it. Right. So to kind of round off today's segment, obviously 314 is not too far away. I think it's about 2 months away. And it's around about that time we might, where we should talk about, because nothing's laid down in stone yet.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys thinking? I've actually gone one step further, and I've got a feature fight, I've got a co-main, and I've got a main event.
oh,
But what do you guys think? And I'll be honest, it was rough going for me, especially with the main event. But yeah, what suggestions do you guys have for how we could book that card? Like I said, 8 to 10 weeks away, and still not booked. So what do you reckon?
dang, is nobody on this card? There's got to be some people that are booked card already, right?
There's a few booked. Yeah, there's a few on it.
I think the headline, my vote for a headliner is going to be Ilya versus Volk too.
That's probably what they're going to do, and I'm not thrilled with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really
happen to Volk again.
Yeah, I don't need to see that. I'd rather see Volk versus Diego. But Diego's already, well, it's rumored to be, Diego against Yair. That's the rumor. Don't know if that's true or not, but that would be the fight that I would prefer to see, honestly. And really, if I'm going by preferences, I'd rather see Ilya in Spain. Like, let's just hold him and just do that in Spain. But yeah, like that's probably the fight that they're gonna do is Ilya and Volk for whatever reason.
And Bilal Shavkat's got to happen at some point, sometime soon.
I think that was one that I thought about. I'm really pissed off with the Bilal situation because it's exactly as I predicted, that he would get the belt and then he'd gaslight us into saying he'd be active and then would cling on to it for as long as he possibly could. But I actually think this falls more on the situation with Shavkat than him at the moment, because I think Bilal's nearing ready to go, but that Shavkat he won't be ready for April from what I'm hearing. And they've already done JDM and Leon. So it's like, this is what I was saying. Looking through the entire roster, I was like, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on. When you obviously think numbered card, you think title fight. There's got to be a title fight on there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, it's probably going to end up being Pantoja and Kai Kara France who headline this card. Because like with Volk, or they could do Vulcan Ilya, which is highly like. But again, that one pisses me off because you do that fight. We all expect Ilya to get the job done, and then you're kicking the can down the road again, where we might not see Ilya for another 6 to 9 months after that. So we don't see him until the end of the year. And then we have to worry about the timing. If you want him to fight Islam, you have to worry about the timing for that. Because Islam will then conveniently want to fight in the interim, and then we never get that fight. And I think we're missing out on an opportunity if we don't take that. You've also got Diego Lopez in the wings, who probably should be fighting Ilya right now based on the trajectory of his career, the excitement factor, the Spanish speaking we spoke about. We don't necessarily do that on that card, but again, we could do that in Spain.
Mr.
I don't know. It's a
509.
myth.
509
do
just
that.
hit it right on the head. That I can
Don't do
see
that
that
to me,
too.
Mr. 509. Don't do that.
That's probably what it's gonna be for real. You think about it,
No,
Harrison
he's right.
I
trains
wouldn't.
in
He's right.
South Florida.
I'm gonna be real. I don't hate it, and the reason why if I have to see a title fight that I don't care about, seeing Pena get absolutely battered would do it for me. But I'd at least enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah,
Man,
but
you know they
need
should do that.
knowing Pena, she would make that fight more competitive than what we all think it will be. That's just who
Probably
she
true.
is,
That's
dog,
probably
for real.
true. Man, they should do that fight at AKA just live stream it for free on YouTube.
Yeah, throw it on an Apex card.
I want to watch.
I'm all for it because I'm like, get it out the way. I
They
don't
do
want
have to get it
Pena
out
as
the way.
champion. We don't have a lot of options. Just get it out, and then we could do that whole like, just you know what's gonna happen. Harrison dog walks her, beats the fuck out of her, then grabs the mic and calls out Nunes.
Yeah.
And then we
That's probably
might
what's
get
gonna
that by
happen.
the end of the year.
Maybe.
And then they drag Pacheco in as well, and maybe Chris Cyborg re-enters the situation. I don't know. There's just
Yeah.
fuck
I want to
women's
see. I
MMA,
do
man.
want to
I
see
don't give a
Pacheco
fuck.
over here.
Whatever.
So the fights that I see that are confirmed are, of course, Pantoja, Kaikar France, Nikita Krylov against Dominic Reyes, Verna Jandarova against Yan Xiaonan, Chase Hooper against Jim
That's a
Miller,
good one. I like that.
and Sumo Darji against Mitch Raposo, and Darren Elkins against Juicy J.
Yeah, that was
Julian
announced
Erosa.
today. Also, apparently, Paddy and Michael Chandler is rumored to be potentially taking place on
I
this
saw
card as
that
well,
rumor too.
which I also don't hate because again, it kind of makes sense ranking wise. They're both names. You can't give Paddy what's it called? Money Moik now after what's just happened to him. He needs a little bit of a setback, or at least a little bit of time off to reevaluate. I don't like the idea of Chandler getting. They were talking Chandler Sarukian, which just disgusts me. If they make that fight, I'm gonna be fucking furious.
Dude, I was so upset about that.
Yeah.
I think the Paddy fight makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And again, you know, regardless of their personalities, like there's no way that fight's not going to be entertaining.
Oh no, it will be fun, and again, the build up will be fun as well. The whole thing, and again, we answer a lot of questions. It's like, first of all, like Chandler doesn't deserve somebody who's ranked. Period. But Paddy's sort of just about in the rank, and you know they're not going to give him less than a ranked fighter. For some reason, they just are in love with him. I don't understand. But also, we get to answer that question about Paddy of, is he ready for that next step up the ladder? I know he beat Bobby Green, but it's, fucking Bobby Green. Like Chandler is like a reasonable step up. It's two people that are big names. I wouldn't hate if that was on this card as well. You could slot. That's why I spoke about feature, because I don't think it's good enough to be a co-main. I don't want fucking Chandler getting a co-main or a main again. But you could justify that as like nice feature fight. They'll go at it. It will set up to perhaps lesser title fights that we're not too excited about. And that doesn't need to be 5 rounds as well, which is why I kind of like it as a feature fight.
Are you ready for Paddy Pimblett to be one fight away from a title shot? Because if he beats Michael Chandler, that's the way it's going to be.
That's
they
wild.
Might give him. They might give him the belt in the cage the way they feel about Chandler. I think.
They might
somehow just be like, "You're the champ now."
Might.
I hate that little goblin so much. Fucking soy little shit. Sorry. Yeah, I don't want him. I don't want him anywhere near. So, and like I said, I think rankings wise, it makes so much sense to do it that way. It just does.
Because I mean, Chandler's got to fight down, man. He's got to fight down.
Absolutely.
I mean, if Chandler beats Paddy, I'll be fine with it because it says to me that Paddy's not of that level. So, all right, you're taking out a star or contender or whatever. But if he can't beat Chandler, he's not going to beat the likes of who he's talking about higher up the rankings. If you lose to that guy, you're done basically. You're not done, but you're not top 5. And It gives Chandler another chance against the name, and to protect his ranking this time instead of being given gifts to climb up them. So I like that as a feature fight. I did. There's a few others I was kind of thinking about in terms of, I don't know. This, like I said, the options were fairly slim. Islam should be coming back and fighting on this card, but we know we've got Ramadan, and this is what pissed me off about this whole Moik thing, because he's going to sit out for another 6 months. One thing that I quite like the prospect of, I'm going to throw this in there: Sean O'Malley versus Piotr Yan.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Potentially happen.
I like it
there, because Marab's clocked the division. We need somebody to. I'd prefer to do O'Malley and Sandhagen, but Sandhagen doesn't necessarily deserve it.
I like it, but I'll give a little pushback on it. I feel like Piotr Yan's #1 guy at bantamweight right now.
He's number one contender for sure.
Yeah,
the only problem is the way that Marab dog walked him though it was 5 rounds clear dominate, which is why if he goes and then shows, right, I can beat Sean O'Malley now and do it in a relatively dominant fashion, you can then make the case of, all right, well, Piotr's leveled up a little bit more. He's got more wrinkles to his game. Whereas now it's like, I don't see any evidence I don't necessarily see enough evidence that you could go in there against Marab and do anything different, which is the issue that I have. And we need a resolution, because a lot of people thought he won that fight.
I thought Yan won the first fight too.
And I don't want them just giving it to Sean O'Malley. I don't want them giving Sean O'Malley to Yan, or sorry, Sean O'Malley to Marab, which is probably what they're going to end up doing next. I'd rather he fights Piotr.
No, I prefer Marab to fight Piotr Yan at this point, just because just process of elimination at this point. I mean, everybody else is coming off of a loss, and yeah, he did do Peter Yan dirty, but it's been some time, and maybe he has leveled up. Who knows? Probably not, but maybe he has.
He did look very good again, but again, Figueiredo,
he's small. I feel like,
and we've been missing out on the O'Malley Sandhagen fight for way too long. That fight has
I don't want to lose out on that one either. So I'd either say do O'Malley and him, but then it's like, what do you do with Piotr? Are you just saying Piotr and Marab definitively have to fight each other?
Yeah.
Especially now that Pantoja has been booked as well. Any prospect of doing Pantoja and Marab is pretty much on the back burner for a long time as well now, which seemed like the obvious thing to do, seeing as they've both clocked their divisions. It's tough.
Yeah.
But I like the O'Malley Yan one, then you've got a definitive, this is what you do. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
and then
you
have Marab sitting up for
of this probably going to be out for months, though, because that's going to be a bloodbath.
Probably, but I mean, I don't know. What do you do with Marab? And Marab probably deserves a little bit of time off, seeing as he was pushed in there to fight. He was pushed in there against Umar with the hopes that they could do him the same way that they did Sterling and O'Malley.
True.
That was the attempt.
He didn't fall for it. Didn't fall for the banana tailpipe on that one. Nah.
I can see Marab back in there in like May or June.
Yeah, you could maybe give him somebody somebody who's surging a little bit, who's doing well, who maybe doesn't necessarily deserve a shot, but you can justify it from a height perspective. Maybe looking at like I said, bantamweight. That's the great thing about what Marab did. He's essentially gone through the entire division as a contender. So it's like he's even though he's only defended once, he's kind of already clocked the division because he did it the hard way, and we've discussed this. But you could maybe do him and Corey now, because that's a matchup we haven't seen. I know it's a hard one to justify, but in the meantime, you could justify doing it because it's a fresh matchup.
That's about the only justification.
Ooh, Mr. 509. He said O'Malley versus Sandhagen and Yan versus Umar. Ooh, all those are nasty.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Nasty. I like that, Mr. 509.
Man.
That's an ideal situation. And then, like I said, Marab can just whoever has the more impressive performance out of those two, let him chill for a bit. He's earned it.
Yeah.
If you want to just like reach down into the rankings and pull somebody up that doesn't deserve it, but they can get kind of that Khalil Roundtree treatment. If Song Yadong goes out there and obliterates Henry
Henry
Cejudo,
Cejudo.
that may be a way they could something that they could look at. If they
Yeah,
wanted to just
if he sparks him out in a round or something, you
yeah,
could, and the hype from that would be enormous.
I think that's the only dark horse I can think of. I mean, you got Mario Batista's. I think he's going to fight Marlon Vera, Cheeto. But nobody wants to see
Probably
Mario
win as
Batista
well.
fight.
No.
No.
So I feel like that's the only thing that
No.
you can, if you're trying to pick somebody who's not coming off of a loss, who
Yeah.
could possibly have some hype. That's the only guy I can think of.
Yeah, everybody's pretty much coming off a loss.
Yeah.
Except for
It's a weird
Jan.
situation. It is a weird situation. Yeah, I think that's why you kind of would say that probably Jan is probably the best option at the moment. It's
Mhm.
just that I remember that fight so well. It was the time when I really I really did not want Marab to win that fight, but it's when I kind of turned in Marab's favor just because of the whole build up, the way that Jan was behaving, and
Yeah.
it kind of made me take a liking to Marab a little bit. And I mean, I've totally fallen in love with the dude since.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
You
just
can't
like,
help it.
That was the
guys,
49 takedowns fight, right? Or the
Yeah.
49
was, yeah.
takedown attempts. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That was the only time that I
Yeah.
saw Peter Yan's spirit break. He broke him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Seeing him, and the thing is, he's making it entertaining now. Like,
Mhm.
seeing Umar break was so satisfying to me. Just seeing how he had no answer for it. You could see he was just gone. And then
Yeah,
Marab
it
was
was.
just styling on him, like, just I loved it. So he's become a very but like I said, it's weird because there's not a lot of options in terms of the title fight. But if you look outside of the title, like we said, there's so much potential there for somebody to put their name out and say,
Mhm.
I'm the guy now. And I still
Yeah.
have a lot of faith in Corey Sandhagen. I know that a lot of people don't. In terms of pure skill set, he's somebody that I think is just so well rounded.
He is.
And on his day, I feel like he can beat anyone in that division.
I think so too. I definitely think so.
But yeah, it's a division that I want to see move forward. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up before we call it a day?
Nah, I think that covers it.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for this this card that's coming up. But I'm worried for Jared. The whole time I'm just
I'm
gonna
not that
be
worried.
worried for Jared.
I'm
But
not that
we'll
bothered.
see what happens.
Nah,
As Max Holloway would say, we'll see what happens.
On
we'll see
Saturday
what
night.
happens. Yeah. Saturday night.
Saturday night, we'll find out.
But yeah, shout out to everyone who joined us today. Really appreciate it. It was a bit of a last minute one. And obviously shout out to the creators who are in the chat. So Ty Betts, if you guys could subscribe to him. Bodak came in here earlier. I need to give a quick shout out to Bodak, who's a fellow like Brit creator. If you're somebody who's into like, discussing kind of like current affairs and things like that, he's not like a purely strict MMA channel, but if you feel like talking about the week's news, jump over there because he's someone who I've latched onto over the last few months who's really entertaining to listen to. So get over there and shout out to him. Good Noodle MMA is another good friend of the channel as well. So shout out to him. Is there anybody else that we've forgotten who's got channels? Who are up in
No
here?
Shout
Chill
out to
was in
Crystal.
here.
Shout out to
Fuck
Crystal.
no chill. Fuck no chill. Fuck no chill. Crystal, yeah, obviously shout out to No Chill, shout out to Crystal. Everyone who turned up, really, I appreciate all of you. We'll probably be back later on in the week to go into further, we'll just have a proper catch up. And obviously shout out to you guys. If you're not subscribed to Crossover MMA and Making the Walk, and you're subscribed to me, then please subscribe to those guys immediately.
And guys,
Thanks
in the
very much.
chat, if you want us to keep doing this, just let us know, man. For real. If y'all want it, we will do it more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gotta let us know though.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, have a good one. Thanks for stopping by, and take care, everyone else. See you on the next one.
Later.